Hello and welcome everybody to the Dating Without Nipples podcast, where we take the top off of shame and insecurity and set ourselves free to boldly celebrate who we truly are. I'm so excited to introduce you all, brave souls, to this incredible woman, Jessica Dickson. Jessica is a life empowerment Enneagram coach and a Black mermaid who believes that when Black women heal, the world heals. Her stand is to support women of color heal and live authentically with self-trust, self-safety, and fully embodied freedom. Jessica also believes that our desires call us to our future, and she supports women to get in touch with their dreams. These things have collective ripple effects out into the world. Jessica, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm just delighted.
Delighted and desires. Let's talk desires. My favorite go-to woman when I want full permission to lean into and enjoy and expand upon my desires. So will you talk a little bit about where your journey brought you to the work that you're doing now, and also the work you do around helping women with their desire?
Yeah, so I became obsessed with the Enneagram in 2013 when I had just been promoted. I was working in higher ed at the time, and I had just been promoted, and I was going to supervise professionals full time. And I really wanted to give them some professional development that was just different than the experiences that I had before. Like, Myers-Briggs was fine, True Colors was fine, Strengths, they're all fine. But I really wanted something that was like a little bit deeper. And I did a Google search, and the Googs pointed me to this document that had no author about the Enneagram. And I was like, what is this? And I just realized when I saw it that there was so much opportunity to create depth of transformation, because it didn't just talk about the ways that we're like great in the world or the ways that we interact with other people, which can be helpful information, but it talked about the ways that we interact with people, or the ways that we be in the world that might drag us away from who we're really created to be. And since I was in my mid-20s and I was supervising people who were in their 70s and 80s, I really wanted to be able to give them something that supported their continued growth. That wasn't just like, oh, here's this thing about how I am, cool. And so I just fell in love with the Enneagram at that point. I used it all the time in my career, and I've left higher ed last year. I just had my 1-year anniversary outside of that, and I've been working in my business full time since March 2020 to really be able to support people in their continued transformation, utilizing that system that talks about the ways that we're driven, the things we're driven by, the things that motivate us, and really our why. Beneath all of the reason or the ways that we do things, what is the reason that we do things, and that exploration. And one of the things that I love talking to women about is desire. And I think that journey started only a few years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, when I was really doing some immense healing. And there was a verse that I read in the Bible that it talked about when captives had been released and they were returned back to the land that they had been taken from. And it talked about how when they returned to the land, it was like a dream. They were like in this place where everything looked fresh, and it was like this place where they could create. And I was like, oh, that's important to God. I don't remember hearing about that very much. I don't remember hearing about that very much in church growing up as an adult. And God just took me on this journey of seeing that my desires and the things that I dream are absolutely, from God. And they are divinely given. so that I can expand into, the person I'm really created to be. That our desires, they bring us forth into, they call us forth, like from a future version of ourselves into that. And so I love supporting people and getting in touch with their desires, getting in touch with the things that they really dream about, that they really want in their lives, and allow that to be the thing that calls them forth into, the higher version of themselves. And that is very much supported by the Enneagram, because when you do the work to let go of the things that actually stop you from being essence, right? From being like who you really are, that are more protective, then you can really just transform in a major way. And so I absolutely love that part of my work.
Yes, the creative blank slate. Incredible. I am not familiar with it in terms of the big biblical sense, but I can tell you for sure that is where I try to return to day after day. And it is a big reason why I love, especially the Enneagram, but all types of self-exploration, because it wipes the slate clean when we have this awareness of, this is what's maybe getting in the way. This is the default conditioning and the stories that I've come to believe about myself that's put me on autopilot, and then it's inhibiting me from finding enough space to consider, what are my deepest desires and why, and what do I want to create. The best blank canvas I was ever given, I think, came from the breast cancer, because the double mastectomy, it created my actual body and my chest as a canvas for body art and self-expression. And I think that when it first hit me, there's nothing to lose. I can never lose any part of who I am in my essence. I love how you say essence.
Yeah.
But also, when it feels like all is lost, all that ever is a blank slate to create from. And it's the desire that gets into that fertile soil that starts us going, that curiosity, that wanting, that what am I all about? What am I here for? So fantastic. Yeah. Pulls it through.
And I think that it starts, and sometimes like the blank canvas can be terrifying for people. They're like, this is too much, Jessica. Like, what do you want from me? Like, I don't know where to start. And so I always start really small. Like, what do you want, like, in this moment? Like, does your body want to nap? Do you want some chocolate? Do you want eggs? Do you want to go for a walk? And it's like those little things that build up our muscle so that we can actually start to pay attention to it. Because it's not that, I don't believe that the desires aren't there. I believe it's a matter of attention, that we have not paid attention to them. And so sometimes we have to just build up our muscle and build that muscle, and actually just looking for and identifying, okay, so right now I'm interested in maybe some tea. Okay, then let's make that happen. And one of the things that I like to talk to people about is that it's not about the desire. The desire is important, and it leads, like I said, it calls us forward, and it's the pursuit of the desire that expands us and expands us. And sometimes we get to the thing that we thought we wanted, and it's not really what we want. But when we realize that it's about the journey, we stop being so disappointed at the result and starting to just love ourselves in the journey. And to me, I think that is like the part that I get a lot of juice from, because it's like, yeah, maybe I'll get my master's degree, and I just feel it's anticlimactic. Many things are anticlimactic, right? But it's not about the thing as much as it is about the pursuit of the thing, and who we get to be and who we get to become in that. And then when we're paying attention to that, then we can celebrate regardless of whether we love it or not, like regardless of whether it is like what we thought. It's about like, who we become. And I want people to remember that this life is about who we become and who we get to be, who we get to choose to be, who we get to expand into, who we get to grow into. And that is an important part of us looking at not just our big desires, but even the small ones.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I really believe that the things that we sometimes resent or consider to be responsibilities or limitations that are in our way, which reminds me of the saying, the obstacle is the path, right? Sometimes I might think to myself, well, if I had this amount of money, then I would be free to do this. And I've recently realized, it's my desire for money that pulls me forward to expand my business, to try things that are out of my comfort zone, to create things of value, and then to have the guts to offer that to people and say, this is of value. I want to show it to you. I want to offer it to you. I'm going to keep working with it myself. I've become more resourceful, more intelligent, more courageous, not because of more money in the bank, but because of my desire for that money and what I'm willing to do.
Yes, yes.
I want it. And of course, that's not the only reason why we do these things.
Right.
Although that's where we would get caught up. If it was only for the money, then there's the anticlimactic. That's when goal becomes a 4-letter word, because then sometimes you achieve the goal and you go, well, now what? But appreciating desire for the sake of desire, for that pulling through that you talk about. Awesome.
Yeah, I love that.
I would love to switch gears a little bit, and I'll give you a choice. We can explore both. Where would you like to go next? I'd love to talk a little bit with some specific examples about Enneagram. We can talk about the numbers, you being an 8, my being a 1, maybe other examples. And I would also love to talk about your work and what I know your mission is in setting Black women free. So maybe you can weave the two together, but that's where I'd like to go.
Oh yes. So let's talk about, let's weave them. Let's weave them. Let's go with the flow in that.
Cool.
So the Enneagram, people are like, the Ennea, who? Like, what are you talking about, Jessica? And the Enneagram is, it's seen to some as a personality typing system, or some people call it a test, like an Enneagram test. Like, I took a test. And I like to call it a holistic development tool. That it is not just about our personality, it's about our feelings and our thoughts and our body, and it's about us. It's about us as a full human. And what the Enneagram, the foundation of it is, like I said before, what we're driven by. It is our why. It is the core fears, the core desires that make up our type. It is the core energetic habits that make up our type, and the core thought patterns that make up our type. It's the core defense mechanism of our type that comes up to protect us. And our type really, at some point was really forged to help protect us. Like, we were born these beautiful little beings, perfect, and and then at one point we just recognized, like, this world's not as perfect as I thought it was. Oh no. And then our type just arises. It arises to protect us. It arises to give us structure in our lives, so that we have, an ego, so that we can live. So we need our ego structure. So the point of the Enneagram, some people are like, the point is just like to let go of your type. No. The point is to let go of, if it's appropriate, the protections. But really the point is to get more aware, so you are more at choice. So if I'm a type 8, and the type 8 is sometimes called the challenger or the protector. The boss is the one that I really like. And we are driven by this core fear of being harmed or controlled, and this core desire to really be in control of our life, to create our own destiny, and to just be fully alive. And so when I'm looking at that, when I look at the passion or the energetic habit of the type, is called lust, but it's really like this energetic intensity. If you've ever felt lust, that it's this force like within you that really just, it feels like it's just like this energy that pushes you forward into action. And so that is the energetic habit of the 8. The mental habit or fixation of the 8 is vengeance. And so it's like people should get what's coming to them. Like if you did something bad, you should, something bad should happen to you. And that is a thought pattern. So I like to say that 8s aren't in the street being vigilantes, but the thought is when there's a hurt, when there's an injustice, like that this person should actually get what's coming to them. It's just part of the type's makeup. So what happens when I recognize this? What happens when I recognize that, oh, I'm acting from this fear that you're going to actually hurt me in some way, is that I can say, oh, am I safe right now? I can actually check in with myself and say, okay, well, I am safe. So could I risk vulnerability right now? Okay, no, maybe not that much, but I don't necessarily have to be as protected. And so you get to just be more at choice. Whereas before, I just kind of walked through life. People called me abrasive. People said a lot of things about me. And it was because I just was unaware of these things that were driving me, that were pulling me forward in a way that wasn't to my highest self. So, you might not know that you have a belief about yourself that comes from your type's core belief. Like one of the core beliefs of the type 8 is that the world is, it's a scary place to be, and it takes advantage of the weak. And so I must be strong. And so recognizing that core belief, it helps me to see like, oh, okay, well, am I going to be taken advantage of now? Like I can ask myself those questions. I can start questioning those beliefs, because our core beliefs are not just what we believe about ourselves, but they're what we believe the world believes about us, right? Like I believe that the world thinks that I need to be strong too. And so I can't let down myself, and I can't let down the world. And so it becomes like this process of just inquiring inside and being able to see, okay, so what do I need right now? When my core fears are getting tripped up, I get to check in with myself and be like, what was that about? Do you need to hold on to that? There are some circumstances in which you will need your type's protection. Your type has gotten you through life. It has helped you be successful in a lot of ways. And in some ways, it just, in its most basic state, at the unconscious level, it's insufficient to really move us through to reclaiming that essence. And so that is, to me, is a really important part of when Black women heal, that the world actually heals. Because in my work with people, around their Enneagram type, what we get the opportunity to do is to look at what are the ways that whiteness and the elements that make up whiteness, the culture of whiteness, not just white people, but really like whiteness as a distinct construct, have impacted the way that we express ourselves. And so we might have a way that we express ourselves that's not actually our core type, but it's a way of being that's more adaptive, so that we can really like make it with this in a specific circumstance. So we look at that, and then we look at, okay, so what are the ancestral things that we're holding on to, either the trauma, the expectations that they have of us, even like wanting us to be really successful. Sometimes that can be really good and supportive, and sometimes that can feel like a lot of pressure. So outside of those things, we get to actually parse out what is the culture, what is my interaction with whiteness, to actually see underneath that all, who am I really? Like, who was I created on this earth to be? Because Black women have so many ways that we really do and have needed to protect ourselves, especially in this country, since really the foundation of this country as we know it. And so that's the way we do it. We just look at all these stuff. Sometimes people will be like, well, Jessica, how do I know if it's my culture, if it's me? And I'm like, yes, that's the work.
But I love that it starts with that question. That's that little piece of willingness. That's the first seed of, I don't want to be unconscious anymore. I don't want to be in this cage of conditioning or culture or core beliefs. I'm getting to use all the C words here, so I get to alliterate the whole thing. Cage of control and culture and core beliefs. Yeah, it's true. And we certainly receive that in ways, and the more that we can be aware, it's more, as you say, it's not just, okay, now I'm aware of that and I let that go and that's it. It's bringing in also the desire and the who am I and what do I want, and adding to it.
Yeah.
But truly, here's another C word for us. To set ourselves free, I think, really means to the ability to be at choice. The most empowering thing is the way that we respond to things, the pause between something that happens and our reaction to it, and what that means and what we believe, and then that's all of our actions and our responses, and that creates our entire reality.
Yep.
As an Enneagram 1, and there are 9, correct? There are 9
Yep, there are 9 types.
You are such an expert in all of them, and I've learned in working with the Enneagram that it's not just what number am I and what do I learn about me. There's so much to learn about myself, even through the lens of all of the different types. The perspective is fantastic. For me as a 1, it's really, and you can probably add to this, what I understand it to be is perfectionism. And the protection is, if I am perfect, then I will be free of and protect myself from judgment, blame, and I think ultimately for me, shame, of course, but abandonment. Abandonment. And if I can, and people will love me, and I earn love when I can look good, when I'm beautiful. Beauty equals love. I think that is culturally being raised in Southern California. And although that exists everywhere for women, especially everywhere for everybody.
Yeah.
But beauty and looking good and being, if I can impress you, then I'm worthy of your love and attention, and maybe even your devotion and participation in my life. So then it even equates to my belonging, my worthiness to even be here and even exist. So if I'm dropping those core beliefs, what it feels like is getting to that blank slate of creation that we talk about in the beginning. And also I can set myself, if I'm not in protection, I can set myself free to explore not only other aspects of myself, but I'm free to listen to and engage and explore other people, right? I'm more present. I'm not so self-absorbed. So
yeah, well, what happens when you don't have to be perfect, when you don't have to be beautiful, when you actually recognize that you're whole and complete, and when you recognize that you are not just loved, that you are loved? You know, what does that change? Like, you know what, you can just like lay down some of those protections. Like, you don't need them, because, you know, you just are. You are with nothing to prove, with no one to impress. That like the world literally like cheered when you came into this earth, like like literally, like I just,
something you've said to me before that really stuck, and I would love for the audience to get to hear this too. Obviously there's so much more, and we'll talk about how you can find out more about the Enneagram and all of the work that Jessica does. But one thing that you said to me is, if I believe this core belief about myself, then that's what I assume that God believes about me or wants for me too. And when I can hold that belief of I have to be perfect, and that's, if I hold that up against, well, that's what my higher power, that's what God, that's what the universe, that's what she brought me here for. That's an immediate bullshit. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
Because God gave me the curly hair, and when I want to straighten it out and dye it blonde and do all the things that I think are a match to what, it really shows me I'm going against my own creator, the creation of me, and trying to be something different than I was created to be. So I love that reference.
Yeah. Well, and in the Enneagram system, there is something called the holy ideas. And the holy ideas really point us back to essence. So the holy idea for the type 1 is holy perfection, which actually says like that all is perfect as it is, that there actually already is like this perfect flow of things. And if we open our eyes to it, that it's already there, that there's nothing to create, that there's nothing for you to do. And I just love that. I love remembering that, you know, for the type 8, it's like this holy unity and holy truth, like that we are one, that I might, but by when my type is in this like survival, I do see it as like, you have done the thing. Earlier I talked about vengeance, right? As the mental habit. I might see like you as being against me, but really like we are all one. And what does that mean? You know, what can I let go of? What fights can I, you know, set aside if that is true? And these things, these parts of our essence, when we reclaim them, you know, that's one of the gifts when we do our work, is being able to see like, oh, okay, yeah, my type was kind of fighting for me to get back here, but because this world is just not perfect, it wasn't able to. And you know, that's the opportunity. Is really being able to be with like, oh yeah, like, no, God didn't like create me to like strive for perfection. God created me with like you're actually in perfection, like you're in a perfect flow.
Right.
Like, oh, okay, like, well, how does that change things, right? Like,
yeah, and I feel the little hit of when you said there's nothing to do. That was like, oh, uh-oh. And then I can see what you say. You can feel it firsthand, because logically you would think, why would anyone not want to be set free? Why would anyone, you know, want to hold on to the cage or the thing? And why would that blank slate, as you said in the very beginning, why would that terrify anybody? It sounds fantastic, right? But there's this, well, who am I without that then? And that's the terrifying piece. If there's nothing to do, it's all perfect, it's all being done for you, then what's my role? And who am I? What significance do I have? And do you find that what are some of the really prominent things that you find in your work that people hold on to, that they don't want, when they get scared of being free, that they hold on to, and why?
Well, one of the things that I have to remind people of is that you were created as a human being, not a human doing. And that your doing, it comes as a function of your being. And so when you're out of touch, or when that's out of balance, when you see yourself literally as just this person who is here to perform, who's here to do, you actually like get a little bit out of touch with your being. And so the answer is like to practice being. And it's like, well, what does that even mean? Right. Again, that is the journey. It's like, you know, we all have these things in our body, in our heart, in our head, these shoulds, these supposed tos, which are all beliefs, by the way. You know, we think of them just as thoughts, but they are really like, we believe these things. Like, I feel like our beliefs. And so when we have the chance to really look at them, we get to see like, oh, okay, these are the things that I believe about what I have to do. And how do I like relax into being? Like, what does it mean for me to just be? To be with myself, to be with other people, without even like putting my expectations on them. And it's such a journey, you know. It's not like okay, you know, you practice like one day and like you're fulfilled, like I am forever now like a being. Like, no, it's gonna take like, it's a lifelong practice of being, you know. And I do find that people just, they have a hard time with that. And part of it is that, you know, our Enneagram type is part of our ego structure. And so we have these habits, which are, our habits are basically just thoughts, feelings that we have led to beliefs that we do over and over, that we're just committed to over and over. And so when we see what that is, then it gives us the space, creates space for us to see, is this really who I am, who I want to be? And I think that's really the work, is people slowing down enough to look at themselves really clearly, to look at themselves and really all of the beauty and magic that they were created to be. You know, the work that I do very much starts from the foundation of you are worthy, that you are enough, that you have nothing to prove on this earth to anyone, not even yourself. You know, I was having a conversation, the person said, like, I just have to prove it to myself. Actually, no, you don't. Like, you have nothing to prove to anyone. And the faster that we get that this is true, the easier it is for us to take on and go after the things that we truly desire. So some of the work is helping people see, like, where are the things that you have thought would like absolve you, you would thought would be like your holy grail, you would thought that they would make you good enough. And where can you recognize that you are good enough? You know, your body's good enough, your mind's good enough, the way that you process things is good enough, the way that you express your feelings is good enough. There's nothing for you to do besides be those things. And then when you're able to be, then, you know, the world's endless. When you start from being, it's like you can do anything that you really want, because your wants come from who you are. And sometimes when we're just acting out of our doing, it's not who we really are. It's from that, like, those shoulds. Like, someone told me one time that I should be this way, and therefore I need to be this way. And so part of the work is just, like I talked about with, you know, the work that I do with Black women and women of color, is looking at, like, what are those inherited shoulds about what a woman should be, about what a Black woman should be, about what a Black person should be, about the ways that a Black woman should be in the world, should be with white people, should be with Black people, should be, you know. And so there's all of these things, and being able to just look at them and shining a light and just being able to be like, okay, so which of these is like what we want to hold on to, or is there another way?
Right.
Is there a way that's actually more authentic to who we are, instead of what someone thinks that we should do? Because most of our rules, like, that, you know, we have these rules, and they're trying to help us get to a way that we should be, but they're woefully insufficient at getting us to being.
I love the innocence of the word insufficient, right? It's not condemning. It's not saying get rid of it. This is your problem, which will just give us something to do, to chew on and resolve a problem. But giving the space, slowing down to listen, which can be deeply uncomfortable at first, but the rewards are endless. And yeah, they're just insufficient. That is very graceful. I love that word. So you have several programs that you run. You run programs specifically for women of color and around the Enneagram. You're also currently running a program that is with white women called Disrupt the Narrative.
Yes.
So you have your ultimate mission, as I understand it, is to set Black women free.
Yes, to help them reclaim their freedom.
Reclaim their freedom. Okay, help women of color to reclaim their freedom. Fantastic. You work with Black women and with white women. And what do you see for you personally? When you're in choice for your authentic self, how do you see your work evolving to most effectively and to be most fulfilling in moving your mission forward and being in your authenticity and truth with your desires?
Yeah, I love this question, because I'm really in the middle of looking at all of that. I really did want to, and I do want to support, you know, white people, specifically white women, around this conversation of being an anti-racist, along with doing their Enneagram work in tandem, because there's so much unconscious stuff that goes on with both, that it's really helpful to do them together to go a lot deeper. And so I'm elated and so honored to be able to hold that space. And part of that, part of the reason that I'm even able to do that is because I know that when people who have privilege are doing their own work, that it actually allows more space for the freedom of Black women and women of color when they're expressing it, for it to not be tamped down, for it to not be oppressed. And so, like I tell people, people are talking about creating new systems, and that's all fine and well. But what will happen if you're not doing your own personal work is that you're going to add your own bias and your own prejudice to a new system, because these things are in the unconscious. So we bring the unconscious to the conscious, and we take the conscious and move it into divine right action. And so that's a really important thing for me. And I will continue to do that work. And I am moving to have my work be more Black women, that deep work for Black women, because quite frankly, white women do have a lot of places to go to get their work. And there are not a lot of spaces that are just for Black women to actually look into what's going on with people who are culturally competent and are able to see, like, oh, because of the way the cycle of socialization is something that we're in right now in the program. And it's like the way that these systems are allowed to function is a matter of this cycle, and the ways that these things are perpetuated. And so, someone telling a coach, for example, telling a black woman that you have this limiting belief that you just need to do these 3 steps and let go of it, when there's actually a system that perpetuates why that belief is there, and a system that is not going anywhere. Like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? Like, is that Black woman really held? So I want to make sure that I'm creating that space. So I'm moving to have my business be more, 60% at least Black women and women of color, and creating also space for white women to do this work, because it's really, really important. And so I'm also looking to see how can we integrate these groups, and really, after there's a certain amount of work that's done, to really create healing within that. Because for women, we talk about like patriarchy a lot, but within women, sometimes those sisterhood wounds can be brutal. So there's a lot of healing that's possible. So I just want to give it space and give it time to see what will actually arise from that, and what will that space really look like. Because ultimately, I want healing in the world. I want healing in the world, and I want people to have that have the opportunity to create space for the expression of freedom to do that, and to do it well. So yeah.
Awesome. You're so unique and so special, and we're so incredibly grateful for you for creating these spaces, for doing your own work so that you can do the work in the world and create these spaces for other people. Everything is just more expansive and more expansive. More love, more alignment, more truth, more creativity, more possibility. Yes. Absolutely love it. Thank you for sharing so much. Yes, I have one final question for you, because you've given so much. Sometimes, often on the podcast, I will ask you to be a leader, to lead by example in receiving. So is there something, some energy or intention or something that I could send to you, and that the whole audience, anyone listening, can take a moment and send to you for you to receive? What would you most appreciate right now?
Well, of course, the most vulnerable thing going on in my life came up. So I'm just going to go with that one, which is that I am in the middle of a process of healing some racial trauma around my experiences with white men. And I'm working with someone, and I'm really excited about that. But just being in the process of it's just a lot of energy moving. And so any healing, any prayers around that, I would just so appreciate.
Absolutely. We'll give it attention and space and good intention.
Oh, thank you.
100%. You've got it. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to put in the show notes all of the links where people can find you. Is there anything you want to say for someone maybe that's driving in the car or listening off the cuff? Is there a quick where to go to get more Jessica?
Yeah, probably Instagram is the best place. So that's Jessica D Dickson Coaching, and it's DK not or CK not the X.
Okay.
So yeah, but
Jessica
that's the best place.
Dickson. Thank you so much, Jess. I'm sure we'll have many more conversations to come, but calling it a wrap on this one. And until next time, everybody, give yourself space, be in choice, be free, be unafraid. Thank you so much. Until next time.